So what we're going to be doing today is changing the SI batteries. SI is the service indicator. That is these section of little lights down here. They'll come up. You have 5 greens, then amber, and then a red. They work on an algorithm actually based on the number of miles you do, and then it'll count through that at double speed if it's below operating temperature, and also double speed if it's above a certain RPM. I'm not sure what the RPM was. It might have been 3,500. So it was a very clever way of doing it. So if you were above 3,500 RPM and the engine was cold, it would be burning through your service allowance 4 times the regular rate. The reset then is all done through diagnostics. There's often a way of doing that with the paper clips and so on. But to keep the memory for these, there was quite often lithium batteries inside. There's lithium batteries inside of this one. Sometimes another E30s, you'd find NiCads. So there can be quite a few different variations. I'm just going to show you what's inside this one, which has some lithium batteries, and the general stuff of how to get inside of them, how to have a look, and it might match up with what you've got. You might have something different. Now I have already opened this one up. We do have a couple of bolts that sit in here. I think we got a couple there, one there, one here in the middle as well. You will see these on this one. They were a Phillips head screw, but in a small bolt as well, so you could do them with either. Here we have a Codia stecker. That is where you would stick in a coding plug, although I don't think this one has one there, because there is a coding plug, but it is on the other side, built into the SI board. Right, so screws are out. I forgot to mention this. This was removed earlier. This coding plug will want to be pulled out. You have a couple of tabs there, and he will lift forward. This is only just gently pushed in for me, so it's going to be a little bit tougher for you maybe to grab him out. There is a microchip in there that stores various bits and pieces, pulses per kilometer, for the speedo. I think there might be some configuration settings for how many pulses would count as a particular RPM. But this needs to come out first before you'll pull out some of the rest of the bits and pieces. So then all we've got to do, flip him over. Once we have the screws out, the back will then pull away from the front. There's our board. Now be very careful with this. Certainly do not put that face down anywhere. I'm going to move that out the way. And inside now we have our service board down here, which is still in position. We have an extra screw to remove just here. And if I get him out, this plastic holder can remove, and then the service board will pull out. There we go. And that is our SI board. This is what your SI board will look like. Here are the batteries. I had already removed those, so I put them back just so you can see where they would be. These particular ones are 2 Sanyo laser lithium 3-volt batteries. When I checked them, we had 0.7 volts in each. To check them, what I had to do was scratch in at the contacts on each side and a multimeter over the top to see what the voltage is. There is, you will see this kind of orangey brown coating over the whole lot. That's a varnish conformal coating, which is done to help it avoid moisture and corrosion. If you just touch your multimeter onto that, you're not going to get a clean contact into the battery. So there's a bit of digging in first off to get a good contact in with a multimeter and read the voltage, and 0.7, 0.7, that's not what we're after, so obviously we need to get them changed. If I flip him over, I'll show you now how it's kind of connected. So we had one leg here and two for one of the batteries, one leg here, two, and that's it. And as we see on these batteries, we have two tabs on one side, one tab on the other. I suppose that'll always help you, so you can't put them into the wrong way or anything like that. These little tabs, they are going to be folded over once they go through the holes. So when you are heating them up, you will need to get your soldering iron in, push up that little tab to straighten him so he's nice and straight, and he'll be able to sort of pull out. Then get rid of all our solder, solder sucker, solder braid, anything along that line, just to clear those holes out. And before you start pulling, give these legs a wiggle and make sure they have come loose. There's going to be conformal coating around also on these batteries, gluing them in pretty much. So there can be a bit of force you would need to pull these guys out, and you want to make sure that all of the pulling you're doing is only just because we got the conformal coating on here, and not because we're still got some solder in some of these holes and you start ripping out one of these pads. Worst case scenario, it should be possible to repair damaged traces on one of these, but ideally that's not something you really want to be getting into, especially if it's one of your first times at soldering and it's a quick job you're just doing at the weekend. Here are the new batteries. I just got these from eBay. FDK brand, 3-volt lithium, the size CR14 250 SE. I think the SE refers to the tabs. So these ones have the tabs soldered onto them. That's something you're going to want, because it's going to be incredibly hard to solder on anything. You wouldn't be able to take the tabs off the old battery and solder them onto here. A lot of this is stainless steel, and instead of soldering, they actually get spot welded on. So a couple of these batteries, and as you can see, two tabs on one side, one tab on the other. That's our polarity looked after. Two on the positive, one on the negative. Double check on this one. Two on the positive, one on the negative. Sorry, that's not focusing. There we go. Two on the positive, one on the negative. That's going to be a matching battery. Well, hello again. What you can't figure out now is we're about 2 weeks in the future after the last couple of clips, as we had a bit of a disaster with the batteries. So the new batteries, if I show them here, the leg spacing is different. You can see there that I've got this one sort of bent in a little bit. That's what I was doing. I also had to go with a Dremel and file down on each side to sort of thin them down a bit as well. And then as I was doing this fella, the tab came off. They're only just sort of spot welded on. So the tab came off, and I could get the tab soldered into the board, but can't get any solder to stick on the battery. Now that's very common. You can see I gave it a bit of a clean up there with some sandpaper, but the solder really doesn't like to stick on that. I don't know whether it's just plain stainless steel or it might be nickel plated, but that's the kind of stuff that solder doesn't want to grab onto. So what I've done is I've ordered some special stuff in, a soldering acid, which should do the job. So we're going to have a go at that now and see if that will get us sorted. So this is the stuff we're going to be using from Thermopasty, which is a company, I believe they're in Poland. I've had a few of their fluxes before for various bits and pieces. Comes in pretty handy. This is all like more on the liquid flux sort of size. But this is the special stuff that would be used for soldering onto metals that really don't like solder. It is an acid. They do say it's water soluble. You do need to wash this stuff off afterwards. So we're going to give this a go now and see if we get some solder onto here. We don't need to get a hell of a lot on. We just need to wet the surface so some solder sticks, and then once that's on, that will then solder onto our tab. We'll need to do a little bit the same on the tab. So the main thing is just to get the solder to wet the surface, and then when it's wet, this into the solder will stick, and then the solder will stick to other solder, and then, you know, we can just, it's just as normal. So we'll give it a shot now. So first thing I need to do is get a small drop on the end of this. I'm going to be very careful in doing this, as I don't want any of it to run down the sides and get underneath the plastic heat shrink on this battery, because that's going to be very hard to get out, and it can be sitting there sort of corroding things away. So let me see if I can find something, and we'll get a tiny little drop of that on. Right, so what I have, this I believe is a dental applicator. It's almost like a very, very small cotton bud, and we're going to give this, there is a little brush inside of here, but I'm going to keep it as minimal as possible. So we don't want too much, and we just want to get a little bit just on that little tab, the surface on the top. Right, drop that down. And now let's go with our soldering iron, see if we can get this in without disturbing anything. And will we get him to wet? Can we get that lead out the way as well? Let me just move my hand a little. It's all going Pete Tong. Right. Oh, he's sizzling. We have. There's only a small amount there. I'm going to give it another little dab. Get that out of the way again. Make sure we don't have too much excess floating around. Right, let's be quick. Get him in there. Not great, not great. Let's give it another go. Okay, so we got it. It did take a while. I can see if we shine that up, we have a little blob of solder now, who will be solidly stuck on the end there. I think the key is you need a decent drop of the acid on there, and then very quickly in with the solder, as when the iron touches it, it'll boil away the acid, so you won't have any stuff there doing anything active. So yeah, if you get in there quickly, then that's it. And then now we've got a little bit on there. I'll give that a clean up now to remove the acid, and then I'll need to do another little bit on the tab, and then we'll fit these batteries. Right, well, we got them back in now. Yeah, I would certainly say not a great brand to be using for this job. It's possible, it's doable, but with having to fiddle around with shaving the legs down, and again, tricky to get the solder on this side as well to get onto the legs and the pins as it's coming through. But I have had a look through, I've gone through on the microscope and checked it all out, and yeah, it's all making sort of solid connections, so happy enough with that. But certainly not the kind of thing you'd want to be sort of getting involved with yourself. But anyway, we're going to put this thing back together now. So we have the rest of the dash here. If I angle this up a little, we do have a couple of bits and pieces, so maybe I'll just turn this around so we can see it. Careful of this little bit, which will pop out. Inside there you have your indicators and I think a main beam. You don't want that to fall out and lose the card. Same with down in here, we have the one that says check, and that little card there can fall out. So this board will fit in to here, and it should slide in on some rails nice and gently. There we go, he's home. This section here then will hold him in place. which will go in there, and that holds onto a little bit of a tab. We've got it just about balanced there. One screw in here. That stops this board then coming out. Let me remove a bit of fluff there. Now also, I suppose, be careful and watch out for dust around here, by the way, in these lenses, as you want to make sure it's all sort of nice and clean when you're putting it back together. So if I move him out the way, sure we haven't lost you there. There's the rest of our clocks, and yeah, there's little bits and pieces of dust on there which you'll be constantly staring at, so again, be very careful with these things, as we don't want to break them any further, but clean off any dust. There is watchmakers tools you can get that will a little air blower, you can sort of clean these off, as obviously this is a very similar kind of job. We are now can just drop our case back on, and he will fit in via a couple of pins, and he will clamp onto the board, and then all we got to do is finish off the remaining bolts and he's back together. So those are the screws, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 there in the middle. So that's that all put back together. He's all solid and one piece. And now, don't forget this fella, the all important coding plug, which will slot into here, clips in, and that's it, job done. So this will head off to the customer now, try it out, and fingers crossed it'll get his car up and running again and everything working the way it should. Thanks all for watching. I'll catch you again on the next one.